together very often, and you've given an illustration of that.
Well, I was going to say, if there had been more concern with Muslim minorities in Europe, perhaps the Arab governments would listen more to your appeals. But we've just had Amnesty International talking about serious discrimination against Muslims in Europe. And how much have you spoken out about that?
Indeed I have, because I believe very strongly in the importance, in a democratic country, that we must uphold the rights of all parts of the community.
But it's not doing it even in countries like Belgium and the Netherlands, which have been singled out by Amnesty International.
You're referring to a very interesting and very recent one. Amnesty International didn't point the finger at the United Kingdom, because I think we are there in a responsible way saying that everyone should have the right of protection of the government under one law. Of course, I'm not Belgian, I'm not Spanish, and it's up to them to defend their own position.
All right, Lord Carey, thank you very much indeed. Now, please, could I ask Fadi Daou to speak against the motion?
Thank you. Although I can understand the concern and feeling of responsibility behind this motion, I cannot but disagree with it, at least for three major reasons. First of all, I believe that the responsibility of a government, of each government, is to guarantee security for all its citizens and on equal basis. Hence, instead of stigmatizing the religious minorities by providing a specific protection to them, the government should face the source of this threat and danger and focus on fighting extremism and intolerance and extract it from its roots. Second, most of the Christians in the Arab world, in fact, refuse to be considered as minorities. And this is very important for our debate, since they share with Muslims the Arab culture and civilization from its origins. And this is a very important difference between them and the Muslim minorities, for example, in Europe or in Western countries. And they are co-responsible of their countries and societies. They perceive themselves and seek to be perceived as proactive citizens and not as minor or foreigner or marginalized communities in their own societies. And thirdly and finally, what truly needs to be protected in the Arab world, I agree with you that something should be protected, but it's not the minorities, it's freedom. And freedom is a universal right, freedom of expression, freedom of conscience. So yes, of course, freedom is under threat when hegemonic groups or populist parties reach the political power. In this case, not only Christian minorities or Jewish minorities should be protected, but I think hegemonic groups in power are a threat for all who are different from them.
Thank you, Fadi Daou. Thank you very much indeed. You're a Maronite priest.
Yes.
A Christian from Egypt or Iraq comes to you and says, my community has been targeted. My churches have been destroyed. You're going to say to him, no, I'm not going to offer you any protection at all. I'm not going to go to the governments. I'm not going to say to your Arab governments, you should do something to protect you. You're going to turn away and say, oh, it's part of a wider issue.
In fact, I will tell you what I'm doing, because we are very concerned by these
But no, can you answer that question?
Yes,
you're going to turn them away?
No. Exactly. I will ask him to collaborate with me and with other people, with Muslims in his societies, to work to build a real, modern and fair state in their own society.
That's a huge comfort when when people in his community are being murdered and his churches are being torn down. That's a huge comfort to him.
I can fully
just think of the long term. You're saying to him, don't worry about the situation now. Don't worry about murder. Don't worry about destruction. Just think of a long-term, better society. Dream on.
In fact, we have to think on both levels, on short term and long term.
Isn't this a huge dereliction of your duty?
No, thinking just on the short term, I think it's the best way to evacuate the Middle East from its Christians. Because it's the best way to stigmatize them as victims, and then they will seek, a better life. Of course, they can find...
The Middle East is losing its Christians. Look at Lebanon. Look how many it's lost in Lebanon over the years. It's losing its Christians.
And I believe this is one of the reasons, because we are stigmatizing these groups as minorities, and they are not... They are...
But they're being targeted as minorities. You're not stigmatized. They're being targeted because of their religious persuasion.
I don't believe that is true. It's a kind of stereotypes. In fact...
So it's a coincidence that churches and Christians are just Christians are dying and churches are being pulled down. That's a coincidence,
not a coincidence, but this is a sign of a kind of pathology that is very, very present in all the Middle East, which is extremism and violent groups that are present in the Middle East. The issue is what is behind this. Is the violence against religious minorities or against Christians, is it just a security issue, or it's a social and cultural and religious issue? If it was just a security issue, of course, we can ask government.
To them, it's an issue of safety. To you, it's an intellectual argument.
Not that. It is an issue of
we're
safety.
We're coming to the end. I have to move on.
Yeah, it's an issue of safety, but it's also an issue of living in their own societies in every way.
Fadi Daou, thank you very much indeed. Could I now please ask Ahmed Saad to speak for the motion?
Well, let me first say that I live in a minority in the UK, and I don't see that as a disgraceful term or as a victimizing term at all. I see that as a descriptive term of a status quo. We have to accept that there is a problem in the Arab world as much as in other parts of the world, including the West, but since we're talking about the Arab world, which has started to appear on the surface in the recent years, part of which is the government